It's February 1st, 2022. Um, Today was the day, I went on the field trip with my son to the New York City Hall of Science for his fifth grade trip, part of the New York City school system. I went with Alexander when it was his fifth grade trip. Um, Two totally different experiences. Um, this morning on Dragnet, it's called Community Relations, and it has DR, capital D, capital R, dash 10. It's S11E3. Um, Interestingly enough, on the bus today, it was 71103, but like whatever on the numbers and the whatever's going on. Today's Wednesday. Actually, that's interesting. Brady decided to have a personal recording that he's retiring officially. That was on the news this morning. It's 2/1. So anyhow, the number seems very symbolic, and of course it's on his day. But so I'm watching this Dragnet. In the beginning of it, it's all of these boats and the sailing, and it's talking about building of Marina Del Rey, I suppose. I don't know. Not Canada. I don't know California at all. But in it, has this astrology book where Officer Gannon is speaking to Sergeant Friday in their office. And he's reading through this astrology book. Then I'm going to jump to, and I'll make the boating reference just because I once had somebody who came personally to try to teach me like a very beginner's course in sailing. Not that I've ever had I haven't had much boating time thereafter. That was the most extensive, with some vocabulary. And more than anything, in the way that the topiary has gone, the one word I remember him teaching me more than anything is the word posh. Port side out, starboard home. That stuck with me. The riggings, but the like intrinsic or intricacies of the vocabulary has not really stayed with me. Not that I didn't want it to, just that it has not been harnessed or reinforced by the land folk or from the experiences that I've been exposed to, other than that one personalized trip with whomever it was, because I know it was somebody who was really important, on a boat called a sunfish, um, in a long, long time ago. So this is what this looks like.
Rinvoq is not a steroid, topical, or injection.
Friday, July 26th, 8:30 a.m. Mel and I checked in for work. We were scheduled to discuss our recruiting program with the Junior Chamber of Commerce that morning, so I cleaned up some paperwork before we left.
Now, I know in the ancient world, everything revolves around the sun, the moon, the stars, the birthing plans, the agendas, the future, the present, and to hold the past responsible and have this tracking system. Inside of that astrology, I had a conversation with one of the New York City public school teachers today, one of my son's teachers, um, about what's going on with the man in the front room. That's a problem still. Um, about my handling of it best I can. And whatever's going on with that. Not to embellish or elaborate on things that I don't want to like really whatever, um, where there is someone in the world who holds a orb and rod or staff or a scepter, I think it is called. I've learned that. I just don't know what the words are and where they're located of the folks that are allowed to hold these things. But these people, whomever they are, since I don't have word for them, I don't have English word, I don't have American word for it. Um, but whatever or however they're constructed, I thought that they were the ones that were responsible for the children of Earth on the time frame that they're spawned here, birthed here, whatever the word is. And to have this spiritual connection to my children in the symmetry of time, in an incarnate, plus, I mean, again, it is just so frustrating. And I know that they exist. I just don't know what they call themselves, and I don't know where they're located. They have not presented themselves in any logical format in my life frame. Um, and then there's this My Three Sons, which references back to the Cold War again. And it also references some Air Force, very fashionable, which also I don't have whatever dresses for water works or whatever dresses for air works. Like, they don't exist in my life frame on a day-to-day basis. I don't know what they call themselves. I wouldn't even know where to begin in a directory. I wouldn't even know what to say. I mean, it's not like they don't know I exist, but in the big schematic of things, the person holding the orb and scepter, that know that these special children are going to be born and that the women bring with them this projection in proverb, which is how big churches run, in the Book of Kings. I mean, these things are knowns in the galaxy and the universe before the children, during the children, and there's whoever keeps the big book of secrets. There is then the partnering of these very special women. I mean, these very special women are supposed to have very special men partners. I am so confused how my time here has been so mismanaged by I don't know whom. I don't even know whom to address.
Joe, when were you born? April 2nd. Why? Astrology. Astrology? You know, the zodiac, horoscopes, mystic powers of celestial bodies. Boy, there's some real good stuff in here. Sure there must be. April 2nd, Aries, sign of the old ram. Mars favors Uranus. Jupiter moves in on Leo. Why, look at that. Joe, you know what? No, what? This is your lucky day. Listen to this. Wise investments will pay large dividends. Think of that. Decision.
Now, here's the beginning of that particular episode.
Lives. It's boating weather almost 12 months a year, and people have really taken to the sport. The ocean provides the playground. In 1962, the city began building the Marina del Rey. It already has berths for 6,000 boats. There are 5 yacht clubs, 7 restaurants, 2 motels, and a hotel. If you want to live by your boat, there are numerous apartment complexes on the water with convenient shopping.
Here's the thing. In my life frame, even in New York, there's been no award letter. There's been no, or maybe there was an award level letter at one point, but I would have no idea how to access that, where to go for that. Was that something you cash in? Was there some office that I was supposed to be handled by? So this way I didn't get so lost in the shuffle, knowing that there were people that could potentially try to harm me, but yet there's been no like conversation at all. So this one on My Three Sons, which originally aired in 1960 on November 2nd, it says adjust or bust. Troubles plague Steve when he tries to meet with an Air Force general, Bill Urban. This look, in my grandfather's day, I could find men in New York that looked like this. In my day, they no longer exist. And certainly the other gentleman,
Here it is. Good.
this gentleman in this outfit, no longer exists in New York in the footpath that I have access to. Where they exist, how they're constructed, how they're built into the system, I have no idea. I've been in a series of rooms, and I thought that's what protected me my whole life, and I have much respect for it. I don't know why. It's just something I was brought up to believe. But I don't know. It's like it's like a mythological like creature. I don't know what they do. I don't know how they got into that uniform. I don't know why they were so privileged that they had an entry road and I was kept out of it. I think they call themselves a military. I think they refer to me as a civilian. I have no idea what that even means. And I don't know why they're living so privileged and I'm living so poverty.
Figured you were the right man. Thank you. Shall we take your car?
Oh, certainly, General. Oh, I forgot. We've had a little transportation mix-up at the house, and I'm driving my son's car. I don't think we...
Are you apologizing, Douglas?
Well, no, sir, it isn't that. It's
Well,
just...
adjust to it. Can't be inflexible, you know.
I know, sir.
Life is just a series of small adjustments. Come on, Johnson. No time for that.
May I have your identification, please?
Now, what I find interesting is behind it says Universal Research Development Company. Because I see now this thing on the Me TV saying Universal City, Universal Services. For me, the galaxy is broken, and this universe doesn't even hold enough knowledge bestowed upon my person to really get me to any level of human interaction or living. I mean, like, there are certain things a human needs, like human touch, human relations. There's, like, none of that. It's really frustrating. And I also noticed he's got this number 8 on a billiard ball, which again, some random person that found me online, don't know if it was a stalker or not, only 5'5", found me, named Frank, but he wasn't French. He brought me to something called a roadhouse. While I was there was an interception of Air Force, or they were in some stealth jackets from a movie Stealth. they came in, they knew exactly what they were looking for. They knew exactly what their like words were. I had no idea they were even arriving. I didn't have their itinerary ahead of time. And it was like walking in on a movie scene that was already in progress, and I didn't know what the interaction with Frank was off the internet. I don't know if they had a heads up, but they did warn Frank not to pursue the relationship with me, that I had some kind of file with lots of words and lots of whatever, but he was not to get involved with it. It was supposed to be handled by something else. But yet, Frank pursued me, stayed with me, and wasted a gigantic chunk of my time, even after having been warned. And he was the one who worked at a deco in Melville, who had a whole room of whatever, who said they were from Switzerland. They didn't look like they were from Switzerland. Guyana, maybe, but not Switzerland. Now, here's the piece on this Cold War. This episode of My Three Sons is called Brotherly Love.
What's up, Chip?
Better drink that quick before it freezes.
What is a Cold War?
This is. And the worst kind.
Oh, I wouldn't say that, Bud. At least we're sitting at the same table.
Bob, will you ask Dad to pass the cream, please?
Pass the cream to Robbie, please.
Now, one good thing about a Cold War is that you can bring the foreign ministers of the two countries to a conference table like this and discuss the issues.
Chip, tell Robbie to quit hogging the sweet rolls.
Put on in the sweet rolls, Robbie.
Actually, this is very much like an international situation. You fellas are two countries who are having a border dispute over, well, some land that you both feel belongs to you. Of course, the disputed land in this case happens to be a girl named Judy.
You're fighting over a girl? Jeepers, I thought it was something important.
Calm down.
Now, I was listening to
and the
Andrew
word of their testament.
Womack this morning for some religious context, I suppose, for this area. If he's supposed to be some person, like I heard in a country song somewhere, they're like, they didn't get past 316. And I guess that's, is that a Pope Benedict the 16th reference for Trinity? I'm just curious, because again, I did mention to the teacher today, I'm like, yeah, imagine in some area, like the cosmological constant that I had with my son. I mean, like there's je suis, and then you take out the I. Again, that's kind of the context of a woman having a child and birthing an I of her own. And then there's like this Prince of Peace that's wrapped around that verse. I was like, imagine having a Prince of Peace and now using it as like a national security measurement in New York City. I was like, how do you think our school does as far as funding and the available tools necessary in order for my kid to grow up and have a place in the world? What do you think? How do you think our PS31Q is doing? I'm just curious. And then I did mention her. I was like, do me a favor. I said, remember? I said, have you ever seen this picture? And I showed her the girl with the pearl earring. I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I do remember we were somewhere and you saw that. And I was like, right, yeah, okay. I was like, so I've been told that was my portrait painting I was to reference. So that's goes with the Prince of Peace part for how do you think we're doing as far as some of the other New York City schools with getting adequate funding and resources in our building? And she was just like, and I was like, right, yeah, see, that's what I thought. Here we are, Revelations 12:11. They overcame the devil by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Now, like, I go between this whole sibling thing because he goes into Joseph and then he goes into Jacob and then he goes into the son. And now there is this, like, if you allow the son, but if you denied the mother, but you're trying to take the son, why should the mother? Again, there's this weird piece going on of it doesn't really feel very peaceful, have to be honest. Feels like some lapse in arrangement for some deranged or delusioned something.
Money, and most people just stop right there and put a period. And they claim that, man, I'm going to overcome the devil by the blood of the Lamb and the word of my testimony. But it goes on to say, and they love not their lives unto the death. I guarantee you, if you're...
My children would be clams because I'm a pearl. Just saying.
You're going to overcome the devil by the blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony. You got to get to a place that you love not your life to the death. You love God. You love what God has called you to do more than you love yourself. And today, just like it says in 2 Timothy chapter 3, that people are lovers of their own selves, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God.
And I am thinking to myself, my cardinal in New York at Vatican level, that is his name boat or namesake. And it's got 2, and then it's got the 3 over here. I just, again, and the 4 being, looks like a set sail.
And because of this, I guarantee you there's just a lot of weak people today because it's all about them. And if it's going to cost them something, they just fall apart like a $2 suitcase. In previous pandemics, people had worse situations than what we've gone through, but it didn't affect society as badly because they weren't into self-love as much. Boy, these are important statements. And I get all of this thinking about Jacob just sitting there refusing to be comforted. He was going to nurse his hurts. He was going to feed those hurts. He was going to grieve the rest of his life, somehow or another, thinking that he was doing Joseph some kind of honor by grieving for him like that. It didn't help Joseph a bit, and it hurt Jacob. He lost 22 years of his life that he was just operating in grief.
Did he? Oh, Joseph, because that's real interesting. Only person I know that wasted 22 years of her life on children that should have been with a different partnership is myself at the moment. I did notice on the news today, they did say that President Joseph Biden, one of his other houses, the FBI got over there. There's something going on. They made mention of it. So I'll put that up as a reference. Just because, again, I'm trying to follow along with what the humans in the unbeknownst to me, but they've been studying it their whole careers. And, like, again, there is this thing of, like, you don't look like a giant, but there's that proverbial giant because you're not literally a giant. Right, yeah, one of those meetings that happened, but, like, did it really happen?
And look at the brothers. It says that they tried to comfort him, but he just refused to be comforted over this. Think about the brothers. You know, Reuben wanted to deliver Joseph out of that pit and bring him back to his father. So he wasn't really into selling Joseph into slavery the way that the other brothers were. But he still, when he saw his father grieving like this, he could have stopped the entire grief by just telling him the truth and telling him that he's not dead. We sold him into slavery. And that could have changed the whole situation. And yet he allowed his father to grieve for 22 years. Every day. And did you know, I could go into more detail on this, but these brothers were still living with their father. It's not like they had moved away and they didn't see each other.
So is that like the brothers in the Democratic Party sold Joseph in some slave ticket that he got into the White House, but before he got in himself on his own, whatever, he had some other, I mean, like, it's a nuclear family at the White House. Nuclear family. It's a family business. Why is there a non-family member that tried to run on a ticket And who's responsible for that? That's what I really want to know. Because it was so clearly not a family member and not a nuclear family member. Remember the days and the TV shows that were like, our number one objective is to keep nuclear weapons away from the non-nuclear family members. So how on earth did the face of the White House change and the nuclear family not rally together and make sure that that day never happened? I'm just so curious and confused. I mean, again, I have the Prince of Peace to worry about, being that he's the peace of the future. And I'm still in an area that uses this White House as the family business, like main base of operation. So, like, it gets a little, like, what are we telling the kids? How are we leading the storyline for the civilians? Because, again, I have no, like, fancy people to ask. I don't even know what words are respectable any longer, being that they haven't introduced themselves.
And every single day for 22 years, he saw his father grieving and going down to the grave, grieving, and yet Reuben wouldn't tell the truth. None of the other brothers would tell the truth.
Here it is.
Update on the breaking news we brought you at the top of the hour. The FBI conducting a search of the second home belonging to President Biden in Delaware as the department's search for classified documents widens. The president's personal attorney says the search was planned in advance and it has the full support and cooperation of Mr. Biden. ABC's M. Nguyen joining us live from the White House with more. M.
Yeah, David, the president's lawyer is saying today's planned search of the president's beach house is in his full support and cooperation. And this comes at the same time the special counsel that's appointed to oversee this case is expected to formally start his work on this case. Today, FBI agents executing a planned search of President Biden's vacation home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. The president's personal lawyer, Bob Bauer, confirming the search is a, quote, further step in a thorough and timely DOJ process we will continue to fully support and facilitate. The lawyer vowing to have further information at the conclusion of today's search. This search coming a day after Biden and the White House faced new criticism about a perceived lack of transparency after a previously undisclosed FBI search of Biden's former private office in a D.C. think tank he used after his time as vice president has been disclosed. Sources telling ABC FBI agents searched the Penn Biden Center offices in mid-November after an earlier search that same month by Biden's legal team uncovered classified documents in the think tank. The sources did not say if the FBI search found any additional classified material. One source saying the FBI search was done to make sure all Biden-related documents were recovered, but the White House didn't disclose that search to the public, in contrast to the one conducted by the Bureau at Biden's Delaware home in January. Sources saying a warrant was not needed in either search. National security experts underscoring that while transparency may be key in politics, it's not during active investigations.
From a security perspective, there's nothing to be gained by disclosing details of the investigation.
These new revelations come after we've learned former Vice President Mike Pence also discovered classified information in his Indiana home, and following a court-approved FBI raid at President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home last year, after he allegedly refused to return hundreds of classified documents to the DOJ. And these instances of classified documents being found in unsecure places has both members of Congress and national security experts calling for new and improved protocols to keeping classified information safe. At the White House, Emlyn, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
And thank you for that new information on the...
So that's interesting. Here's again, like, there's the presidents, the forefathers, and if it's, and I'm in this, but I remember as a kid when, we went and we took the Amtrak train, we went to Colonial Williamsburg. We had a family vacation. Lynn and Lou did not come. I was with my aunts and I was with the Deans. And it was one of those trips that I have a really hard time remembering. I was trying to follow along, but they were much more versed um, than I had been exposed to on that trip. The schools in New York had not covered the material, but luckily the family brought me to Williamsburg, to Colonial Williamsburg, and they tried their hardest to keep us engaged and learning um, through a process of like physical relocation and like walking through to like have the idea of like the days of George Washington and some of the past presidents. Um, so so all of this is now 2023. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Ketter's Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.